UK food price inflation hits another new high of 12.4% in October, as the price of basics such as eggs, dairy products and coffee have shot up. The cost of fresh food has contributed the most to this price increase, with inflation rising to 14.3% at the end of October compared to 13.3% at the end of September. Prices are expected to keep rising into the next year, with investors still waiting to see the peak. Overall shop price inflation rose to 7.4% at the end of October, up from 6.6% in the previous month, a level not seen since stats began in 2005, as items such as sports equipment are skyrocketing. The rising cost of essentials is hitting poorer households the hardest, many of which are already struggling with higher energy bills as they have fewer options to make cutbacks and savings. Those on higher incomes are able to offset inflation to some extent by reining in spending of non-essentials such as meals out and holidays, and switching to cheaper products by shopping at discounters such as Aldi and Lidl, or even buying own label goods from big supermarkets. The middle class is also beginning to feel the squeeze, with wages effectively shrinking and the costs of essentials eating into their expendable income. Retail bosses have said that the cost of Christmas would be higher this year despite a wave of discounts aimed at encouraging an uptick in spending during the final month of the year when most businesses make the majority of profits. Coffee prices have also shot up last month as high input costs filtered through to the price tags. The rocketing cost of energy, animal feed and transport are in large part to blame for the costs of everything going up. The war in Ukraine and COVID have driven up the price of food, energy and fuel over the last year, affecting consumers and businesses alike. The only real way to combat the rising inflation is to drive down consumer spending. During the pandemic, over £500 billion was printed in order to stimulate the economy, a debt which now must be repaid. As everyone received money for staying at home and not actually contributing to the economy, this has caused a huge oversupply of money. However, the amount of goods being produced by the economy did not increase. In some cases, it may have even dropped. Now, when people want to buy goods such as food, there is the same or higher amount of demand, but supply has reduced. This on its own would normally cause the prices to increase, as demand outweighs supply. However, due to people having more money, they can now pay a little bit more to receive the goods that they need, driving up the prices even further. These constant increases of prices is what is summed up as inflation. Therefore, there are two meaningful ways that inflation could be overcome. The first is by increasing the supply of essential goods such as food and gas, as that would balance out the higher demand and stabilize prices. Due to the supply constraints all over the world, including the COVID lockdowns in China and the conflict in Ukraine, supply chains have been hit very hard, increasing the prices of all goods. Because supply cannot be increased at the moment, demand must be quenched. In order to reduce consumer demand, the Bank of England can deploy a tactic called quantitative tightening. This is where they sell off the bonds that they had previously held, which has the effect of reducing the money supply floating around in the economy. With less money supply, consumers will be squeezed and forced to spend less, contributing to the dampening of inflation. The other way is that the Bank of England can increase the interest rate. The Bank of England sets a base rate of interest which affects the costs of banks borrowing and lending money to each other. When banks have a higher interest rate, credit card repayments become higher, incentivizing people to spend less and therefore reducing demand. Higher interest rates also mean that the cost of getting a new mortgage or repayments on a newly renewed plan increases dramatically. People will have to make an active choice between saving more for the sake of their mortgages and spending on non-essentials. Furthermore, high mortgage repayments will mean that some people will be unable to pay and will be forced to sell their homes, causing an influx of cheaper homes in the market. It seems like it keeps getting worse for Britain, whilst other economies such as the US are seeing a reduction in the pace of inflation. With the staggeringly high debts that the UK has to repay, there could be a period of austerity where the government cuts back on spending such as policing, healthcare and education. The battle to reduce Britain's inflation is ongoing.